Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the last series of the EcoRangers Club till September. We're going to have a two-parter on Western North Carolina fish, and then we're going to stop for the summer and start back up in September. So I really want you guys to keep up with your nature journals, and don't forget to log all your findings in iNaturalist. Madison County Natural Heritage Program is depending on you guys to put your information in there, okay? So I hope you're doing that. And I hope you're just having fun with your nature journals, because it shouldn't be work, it should just be fun. It's like some research and data and pictures and anything you want to put in there that you get to look back at later. So I hope you like it. All right, so today we're going to go over some fish that you can find in Western North Carolina. And yes, I know there are a ton of them, but I only picked out six that were my favorites at least, and six that are pretty easy to identify. So that'll get you started on them. So on this first slide here, the first fish we have over there on the left, and I'm going to go from left to right, top to bottom. That first fish is a bluegill. The one next to it is a tangerine darter. The one next to that is a rock bass. You go down to the next level. Everybody knows what that one is, I hope, if there's any fishermen out there. Does anybody know what that fish is right there on the bottom on the left, the first one?
Trout?
It's a rainbow trout. You're right, exactly. The one in the middle is a mottled sculpin. And the one at the end is a central stone roller. So we're going to talk about these guys. And first thing we need to do, if we could go to the second slide, how do you identify fish? It's kind of hard. I have got a snorkel and goggles, and I will go into some of the streams in the summertime or in the spring. I do have a wetsuit in case it gets too cold, but I'll go and I'll snorkel, and you can see tons of these fish down there. It's a lot of fun too. And if you go during different seasons, like if you go during breeding season, a lot of these fish are really brightly colored. It's just pretty to see. All right, so what do you need to do? What do you need to know to identify a fish? All right, so if you look at this drawing, it's got everything on here from head shape to the mouth, the fin types, the eyes, the tails, the gills. All of this is going to help you zoom in on how to ID a fish. Basically, the types of fins, if you really want to look at this real quick. Of course, the one in the back, that's called the tail fin or the caudal fin. The one on the top of its back here, like you'll see like a shark will have up there, that's their dorsal fin, okay? The one on the bottom is called the anal fin, and then the ones on the sides are called the pectoral fins, okay? And then you'll also see, of course, the eye and the gill coverings on there as well. But the fins can help you a lot in IDing fish. So let's go to our first fish. This guy is a bluegill. Okay, they're commonly referred to around here as brim or bream, and they're the most common sunfish in all of North America. Okay, so these guys are characterized by a small head and mouth. So if you look at just the face part of it kind of and see the shape of their head compared to the rest of their body, they've got a tiny head. Okay, and they have a pan-shaped body, which means it's kind of oval and they're kind of flat. It's often olive green, and then it usually has several dark vertical bars on the side. And you can see those in that top illustration. You can see those kind of stripes. That's what I'm talking about. And if you look at the second fish, you can kind of see them there. Okay. The throat and belly are often yellowish or orange in color, and you can see that in the illustration as well as on that fish. The lower jaw and gill color is powder blue, and you can definitely see that. You can certainly see it on the illustration, but if you look at the fish in that person's hand, see that blue line that goes from its mouth all the way back up to its gill? That's definitely a characteristic of the bluegill, hence bluegill. Okay. There's a black blotch at the base of the dorsal fin. That's the top fin. You'll see all the way, that's a pretty big fin, isn't it? If you'll see all the way to the end of it, right close to the tail, you'll see a dark spot in the illustration. And if you look at the fish, you'll see a dark spot back there too, okay? The ear flap is always black, and that's that big black spot right on the side of his head. That covers his ears. And that helps to distinguish the bluegill from other sunfish species because other ones will have an orange or a red spot. The bluegill has a black ear flap. Okay, these guys can grow up about 12 inches long and about 4.5 pounds, so not that big. Many of these fish can reach 5 to 8 years old, and some have even been found to live to up to 11 years. So that's pretty long for a fish. All right, let's go to slide number 4, please. And this is going to show you the habitats they can be found in. They're found in all kinds of habitats except rapid flowing trout streams. So if you have a rapid flowing stream, they're not going to be in there. They're most abundant in ponds and reservoirs. They can be found in rivers, creeks, swamps throughout the state. Okay. I know there's some in Fontana Lake. I've caught one there, caught a couple. They thrive in both clear and turbid water. What do you think turbid water is? T-U-R-B-I-D, turbid. Anybody know? Turbid water, think about it, it kind of like, sounds like turbulence. So it's water that's kind of cloudy and thick with a lot of matter in it. It's been stirred up and it kind of stays like that. They can tolerate slightly acidic or saline conditions, so they can live in a little bit of salt water. They usually hide around old tree stumps and other underwater structures. They can live in either very deep or very shallow water, and they'll move depending on the time of day or season to the deep or shallow water. They like shallow water during the spring for spawning, pretty much. They also like to find shelter among aquatic plants and in the shade of trees along the barks. Okay? These fish are omnivores. Come on, guys. What are omnivores again?
They eat meat and plants.
They eat everything. Very good. Thanks, guys. They'll eat anything that can fit in their mouth, basically. They mostly feed on snails, small crayfish, insects, spiders, worms, fish eggs, small minnows. Okay, so they eat a lot. They feed near vegetation or other cover so they can hide from predators. And these guys play a key role in the food chain for other fish. Other fish that like to eat them: bass, sunfish, northern pike, walleyes, muskies, trout, and then you also have herons, kingfishers, snapping turtles, and otters. Everybody likes to eat this fish. Their spawning season starts in late May and extends to August. So right around in a couple of weeks, these guys are going to start getting really brightly colored. So if you go out to any of your streams, you'd be able to spot them pretty well. The peak of the spawning season usually occurs in June, and it is the male's responsibility to pick a good nesting spot and to build the nest. So that's very nice of him. The female lays her eggs in the nest, and then the male will guard them until they hatch. And he continues his watch even after they come out. So if you look at that first picture on the slide where it says bluegill nest, that's what their nests look like from above the water if you're looking in there. Okay? You can find these guys near Redmond Dam in Mars Hill. That's the second picture there. Look close to the sides where the vegetation's kind of growing in. You'll find them in there. And then the French Broad River, which is, of course, that third picture. You can also find them in Lake Julian, Lake Lower Fontana Lake. I mean, they can be found all over the area. So if you're looking for some bluegill, there's some good spots. Okay, if we could go to slide number 5. This is one of my favorite fish around here, simply because of the colors. Orange is my favorite color. And these guys are really pretty to see out in the wild. This is called a tangerine darter. That makes sense. There's roughly 20 species, excuse me, of darters in North Carolina. Hang on a sec, guys. Okay, so when compared to other darters, it's kind of large and very stout. So it's big and kind of chunky, okay? The adult males are characterized by an orange-red to tangerine color along their lower midsides and bellies. And you can see that on all 3 pictures, okay? There's no mistaking a tangerine darter. Females are usually yellow. They have about 8 to 12 fused blotches along their midside that usually form a continuous broad black stripe from head to tail. See that blotchy kind of stripe going from their face all the way down to their tail? That's another clear sign of a tangerine darter. Above the stripe lies a row of small black dots that is unique to the species. And you can see those on the second picture at the top. See between the long black line and the fin, the dorsal fin, you see those dots. Those are also a great way to spot a tangerine darter. Okay, ventral fins for both sexes are dusky to black. So those are the fins down there at the bottom. You can see them kind of a grayish color. Breeding males are going to, theirs are going to turn bright blue. And that's what that one, the picture on the top, you can see how his fin is a real pretty blue color. Yes, he's looking for a lady. Okay, they're about 4.3 inches to 7.1 inches. So they're about this big. Excuse me. They can live approximately 4 years. That's if nobody else eats them, catches them, or anything. But these guys are so pretty to see just in the streams. All right, if we can go to slide number 6 and we'll talk about their habitat. Okay, so these guys occur only in the Tennessee River drainage area within the Appalachian Mountain region. Okay, they like large creeks, small rivers with clear water, and it limits them. So they're not in that very many spots. The species has a very restricted range, and it inhabits specific types of waterways. So right now, he's on the North Carolina Natural Heritage Program's watch list, which means he's not endangered yet, but he's getting to that point, and that's because their habitat is being slowly taken away. That seems to be a common problem around a lot of our species, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this guy occurs in clear, cool, and warm large creeks and small rivers with a moderate grade, meaning the rivers aren't going to be really steep. They're just going to kind of gradually go down. So they'll have shallow spots and deeper spots. They like places with riffles and runs. What the heck is that? Riffles and runs, when you're looking at a stream and you see a lot of rocks out there and the water's flowing over them, those are called riffles and runs. They like that. They like that movement. They like the bedrock, boulder, and gravel substrate for most of the year. And then in the winter, they move into the deeper pools. Now, why in the world would they move into a deeper pool in the winter time? Does anybody have a guess?
Because it's warmer in a deeper pool.
In the wintertime, the water's warmer, and I'm going to tell you why. Lake turnover. Okay, lake turnover is the seasonal movement of water in a lake. Okay, shallow lakes don't get much turnover. There's not much depth there. Okay, large, deep lakes experience major changes as waters of different temperatures mix. So lake turnover is the process of the water on the top flipping to the bottom. Okay, that's called epilimnion. Okay, and the bottom is called the hypolimnion. So the top is the epilimnion, the bottom is the hypolimnion. During the summer, the epilimnion, or the surface layer, is the warmest. Why is the top of the lake warmest in the summer?
Because the heat rises.
That's a good answer. The heat rises, and also that's the part that the sun's hitting, right? So all of that's going to be nice and warm. Meanwhile, down there in the bottom of the lake, and if any of you have ever been swimming in a lake in the summertime, you'll know if you go down a little farther, it starts getting colder. The bottom of the lake is cold because the sun isn't reaching down as much, okay? During the fall, the top layer starts to cool. As the top layer starts to cool, it becomes heavier, more dense. So what happens, it sinks and it flips the layers over again. So what'll happen in the wintertime, which sounds kind of weird, the water on the bottom will actually be warmer than the water on the top. The water on the top is absorbing all that cold, and it doesn't trickle down quite as far. Now, it's not going to be 80 degrees at the bottom, but it will be warmer than the top. So remember that lakes move. In the summertime, the top layer is going to be warmer, and in the wintertime, the bottom layer is going to be warmer. So if the lake moves, that means the fish are going to move during the seasons too. Good tip for all you fishermen out there. Okay? So that big old explanation will tell you why the darter moves from the top to the bottom, depending on the season. This guy is insectivore. So what's an insectivore?
Eats insects.
Very good, very good. They pick insect larvae off of aquatic plants in the riverbed, and they sometimes roll small stones over to expose prey. So that's why it's really important to keep our streams and lakes clean. These fish depend on those insects, and if those insects aren't living in a clean stream, they won't stay there. So if the insects go, the fish don't have anything to eat. These little fish don't have anything to eat, the bigger fish don't. You see how that works? The tangerine darter spawns in shallow sandy gravel riffles that have constant flowing water. That's that part I told you about, where the water's riffling over the rocks and it keeps going. They like that. The male defends it, but he won't risk his life to save the eggs. So if a bigger fish comes around, the male will hang out for a while and they'll be like, nah, see you later. And he'll run off and let the big fish eat the eggs.
Oh.
The tangerine darter's biggest threat, as I said, is habitat habitat destruction. Sorry guys, my mouth isn't working today.
Big word.
Yes, so just remember that. Habitat destruction is one of the worst things. If you look at the slide, you'll see a typical nesting area for a tangerine darter. That's on the right-hand side of the slide. See them in there in the rocks, and then also on the bottom, you'll see them in there within the vegetation eating. And that top picture shows you and explains to you about how the lakes flip-flop back and forth. All right, guys, the next fish we're going to talk about, slide number 7, is the rock bass. This guy's also a member of the sunfish family. He's got a short, robust body, so it's kind of short and squatty too. He's got an olive green top and gold or brassy colored sides. That's not much, right? It's kind of plain. The scales along the sides often have a dark spot, and they often form a stripe-like appearance. So if you look at the fish on the top, those aren't actually stripes. Those are a lot of spots close together that look like stripes. If you look at the guy on the bottom picture, you can see all the spots on it, okay? The main identification of a rock bass, besides his shape, is his eye. Rock bass have red eyes, always, okay? Their dorsal fin on the top, if you look at that top diagram where the number 2 is, they're connected. A lot of fish, one dorsal fin will be separate from another. These are connected, okay? There's a dark spot on the ear flap and the cheeks are scaled. So if you see that ear flap, right, you see the eye. If you look right directly behind the eye, you'll see that dark spot, just like that bluegill. He's got a dark ear flap, okay? The average rock bass is between 6 and 10 inches, not that big, and they rarely weigh over a pound. They live approximately 10 to 12 years, and he's got some interesting nicknames. They call him Google Eye, Red Eye, or Rock Perches. All right, let's go to slide number 8. Okay, in North Carolina, rock bass are native to the rivers in the western part of the state that flow into the Mississippi, and they are also being stocked. All right, the cool water rivers in the western part of the state, such as the Nola Chucky, and you'll see that in the second picture, and the Little Tennessee in the first picture, they're great places to find rock bass. They're also common in a lot of the smaller foothill streams, such as the Mitchell River and Reddy's River. They prefer clear, rocky, vegetated stream pools and lake margins, like a lot of fish, okay? Rocky banks of lakes and reservoirs are a common habitat for rock bass. If you ever look into fish, look by the banks where there's lots of rocks, where there's lots of vegetation. They're hiding in there, right? Their favorite habitat contains some vegetation with rocky bottoms and cool to warm waters. Rock bass species are usually found near rocky shorelines. So there you go, guys, rock bass, rocky shorelines. You'll find them there. Okay, they can be surprisingly unaffected by human activity. They like to live under lakeside docks, and sometimes they'll live near swimming areas. They're frequently seen in groups and particularly near other sunfish. Okay. The rock bass does have predators. Large bass, northern pike, muskie, and walleye love rock bass. Rock bass compete with smallmouth bass for food. These guys are carnivorous. What's carnivorous?
They eat meat.
Perfect. Its diet consists of smaller fish, and they may even eat their own young sometimes when they're hungry.
Oh.
So I'd probably want to get away from them after I hatched. They eat yellow perch, minnows, as well as insects and crustaceans, like little crayfish and stuff. They're occasionally known to take food from the surface, and they eat heavily, particularly in the evening and early in the morning. So if you want to go out and catch one, early in the morning, late at night, near the rocks. Like other members of the sunfish family, the male will dig a nest near the lake shallows. And if you look on that slide, you'll see that rock bass nest right there. Looks like the other sunfish, the bluegill. A spawning area may be heavily used, and there'll be a lot of rock bass nests there very close together. And because of that, the males will get really aggressive when they try to defend their territory and their nests. So they'll get aggressive to each other. Silly fish. Okay, and our last fish, I think, oh wait, that is our last fish for the day, I believe, isn't it? Hang on one sec. Let me just check. Yep, that's our last fish for the day, guys. We're going to go over 3 others next week. So I want you guys to go out into those streams. Not today, though. If you were a fish, you'd be happy you were out there today, but don't you go out there today. It's a little too rainy and thundery. But once the waters go down, take a trip out with mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, have an adult with you, and go out and check out some of those streams and the lakes and see what kind of fish you can find. If you have a waterproof camera, it'd be really cool to take that with you, and then you can take pictures and post them on that iNaturalist site, okay? All right, guys, well, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm gonna miss you all over the summer, but we do have one more session, so tune in a couple weeks and we'll finish this up. It was good to see you all. Thanks.